Hello, hello. Welcome to Miss Clark Reads to You. We are picking up with Blues Ain't No Mockingbird. We have Grandaddy Cain, who has just shown up onto the scene. Now let me repaint the picture of the onion layered scene. We have an afternoon swinging on the tire swing with Tyrone and Terry and Kathy, grown up, and the narrator, so who refers to herself as me. Now, I think in the last video I made a small mistake and I said that the narrator's name is Kathy. We don't know the narrator's name. She just calls herself in first person, I. So she then lets us know that these two men are making a movie picture. Okay, they are reporters and they come up to the lawn. And Granny is on the porch making Christmas cakes. And she stops and she walks out on the porch and she holds the door open and she says, "We ain't no trees." In other words, you shouldn't be walking through this lawn, through this property, taking pictures like we're trees or something in nature. And then the guys basically keep the camera buzzing, and Granny Cain turns to the kids and she says, "You know what this reminds me of? A story of a man I saw committing suicide on a bridge one afternoon, and these reporters show up and they're about to capture it. And the kids are really interested." And she sort of stops the story before she tells whether or not the man committed suicide, because the point of her story is to say there are just some things that reporters should not be taking pictures of. One, our private lives, the private lives of people who are on their own property. And two, are these really intimate, tragic moments in people's lives. And then Kathy grown up says, "You know what it reminds me of? The Goldilocks story, where Goldilocks comes and trespasses in these people's houses. And she messes up their stuff." And Tyrone and Terry are all like, "Yeah, and did they get really mad?" And the narrator's like, "I just remembered that as a story about some three bears." And then we move into this spot where the narrator says, "This is not the first time that my grandmother has gotten perturbed by people getting up in her business. There was the Judsons, there was the Coopers, and when those people got up in our business, we packed up in the middle of the night and we left. And then up comes Grandaddy Cain, up through the woods with his field boots on. And the narrator tells us that there's still yellows and reds and oranges on the trees, meaning it's not quite the end of fall. And Granddaddy's great white head, not quite round because of this bloody thing on his shoulder. So something, his kill, because he was in the woods hunting, is on his shoulder. He takes the shortcut through the pecan grove, and the sound of twigs snapping overhead and underfoot travels clear and cold all the way up to us. And here comes Smiling and Camera up behind him like they was going to do something. Folks like to go for him sometimes, meaning they like to approach him sometimes. Get going on him. Kathy says it's because he's so tall and quiet and like a king, and people just can't stand it. But Smiling and Camera don't hit him in the head or nothing, meaning they're not getting violent with our granddaddy. They just buzz on him, meaning the camera. They just run the camera on him as he's walking, as he stalks by with the chicken hawk slung over his shoulder. So he has captured and killed a chicken hawk. Except what's interesting about this chicken hawk, it's not quite dead yet. You're going to see that in a moment. It's squawking. That's how you know it's not dead yet. dripping red down the back of the oil skin, which would be the bag he was going to put it in. He passes the porch and stops for a second for Granny to see he's caught the hawk at last, but she's just staring and mumbling. Now, another story within the story here seems to be that Granny had challenged Granddaddy to catch this chicken hawk. And he's been chasing it. He's been trying to catch this darn thing. Who knows? She wants to make a soup or something. And finally he's caught it, and he wants his wife to say, "Good job." But she's too busy being mad. And she's not mumbling, not at the hawk. So he nails the bird to the tool shed door, the hammerhead cracking through the eardrums, and the bird's flapping himself to death and drooling down the door to paint the gravel in the driveway red, then brown and black, and the two men moving up on tiptoe like they was invisible or we were a blind one. "Get them persons out of my flower bed, Mr. Cain," say Granny, moaning real low like at a funeral. So Granddaddy has some business to do. He has been set by Granny Cain to get Cameraman and Smiling Man off this property. So what he does is he takes the bird, because he doesn't want it to get away, and he nails it to that shed so he can do his business with these two men, get them off the property. "How come your grandmother calls her husband Mr. Cain all the time?" Tyrone whispers all loud and noisy from the city, and don't know no better. Like his mama, Miss Myrtle, tell us never mind the formality, as if we had no better breeding than to call her Myrtle plain. And then this awful thing. A giant hawk come wailing up over the meadow, flying low and tilted and screaming, zigzagging through the pecan grove, breaking branches, hollering, snapping past the clothesline, flying every which way, and flying into things reckless with crazy. So apparently the chicken hawk that Granddaddy caught has a mate that is coming to rescue it from Granddaddy. "He's come to claim his mate," say Kathy fast. And she ducks down. We all fall quick and flat into the gravel driveway. Stones are scraping my face, and I squinch my eyes open again at the hawk on the door, and that's trying to fly up out of her death like it was just a sack flown into by mistake. Her body holding her there on that nail, though, and the mate beating the air overhead and clutching for hair, for heads, for landing space. So this husband of this chicken hawk is coming to save his lady chicken hawk who's nailed to the door of the shed. And the cameraman is ducking, and he's bending, and he's running, and he's falling, and he's jiggling the camera, and he's scared. And Smiling, jumping up and down, swiping at the huge bird. So this bird is attacking Cameron Smiling Man, trying to bring the hawk down with just his raggedy old cap. So the Smiling Man pulls his cap off, and he's trying to get that hawk away from him. Granddaddy Cain straight up and silent, watching the circles of the hawk, then aiming the hammer off his wrist. So look how cool and controlled Granddaddy Cain is. So we got the kids in the gravel. We got the cameramen jumping up and down and dodging. We've got Smiling Man with the cap trying to swoosh the thing away. And Granddaddy Cain straight up and silent, watching the circles of the hawk, then aiming the hammer off his wrist. And the giant bird falling silent and slow. Then here comes Camera and Smiling, all big and bad now, that the awful screeching thing is on its back and broken. Here they come. And Granddaddy Cain looks up at them like it was the first time noticing, but not paying them too much mind, 'cause he's listening. We all listening to that low groaning music coming from the porch. And we know that low groaning music, that's Granny. And we figure any minute, something in my back tells me any minute now, Granny gonna bust through that screen with something in her hand and murder on her mind. So Granddaddy say above the buzzin', but quiet, "Good day, gentlemen," just like that. Like he'd invited them to play cards, and they'd stayed too long, and all the sandwiches were gone, and Reverend Webb was dropping by, and it was time to go. They didn't know what to do. But like Kathy say, folks can't stand Granddaddy, tall and silent like a king. They can't neither. The smile, the men smiling, is pulling the mouth back and showing the teeth. Looking like the wolf man, both of them. Then Granddaddy holds his hand out, this huge hand. I used to sit in it when I was a baby, and he'd carry me through the house to my mother like I was a gift on a tray, like he used to on the trains. They called the other men just waiters, but they spoke of Granddaddy separate and said, "the waiter," and said he had engines in his feet and motors in his hands, and couldn't no train throw him off, and couldn't nobody turn him round. They were big enough for motors, his hands were. He held that one hand out all still, and it getting to be not at all a hand, but a person in itself. "He wants you to hand him the camera," smiling man whispers to cameraman, tilting his head to talk secret, like they was in the jungle or something, and come upon a native that don't speak the language. The men start untying the straps, and they put the camera into that great hand speckled with the hawk's blood, all black and crackly now, and the hand don't even drop with the weight, just the fingers move up, curl up around the machine. But Granddaddy looking straight at the men, they looking at each other and everywhere but at Granddaddy's face. We filming for the county, see?" say smiling. We putting together a movie for the food stamp program, and filming all around these parts, filming for the county." "Can I have my camera back?" say the tall man with no machine on his shoulder, but still keeping it high, like the camera was still there or needed to be. "Please, sir." Then Granddaddy's other hand flies up like a sudden and gentle bird, and slap down fast on top of the camera, and lifts off half like it was a calabash cut for Sharon. "Hey!" Camera jumps forward. He gathers up the parts into his chest, and everything unrolling and falling over. "What you trying to do? You'll ruin the film." He looks down into his chest of metal reels and things like he's protecting a kitten from the cold. "You're standing in the Mrs. Flower Bed," says Granddaddy. "This is our own place." So we'll stop there. We'll pick up in the next video and finish up reading and analyzing this layer upon layer story. I'm so glad you joined me, and I cannot wait to read the rest of this to you. Thank you, and I'll see you in a bit.